He had nothing, no money, no name, just fire. Born in 1863, rural Michigan, a world without engines. His father expected a farmer. Henry wanted machines. At 12, he fixed watches. Neighbors called him gifted. While others plowed fields, he dismantled the future. By 15, he'd built his first steam engine. His mother died young. The farm lost its meaning. He packed one bag. He walked toward Detroit. 16 years old. No plan, only obsession. His first job lasted exactly 6 days. He earned $2.60 a week. Rent cost more. He worked nights, repairing watches, surviving Detroit. 2 jobs, 0 comfort, 100% hunger. Then he discovered the gas engine. Everything changed. A single engine article lit a fire in his mind. He met Clara Bryant. She believed in his dream. Married in 1888. She never doubted him, not once. He joined Edison's company in 1891. His career ignited. Night engineer. Free electricity. Endless experiments. He used the plant's power to build his own engine. 1893. A son was born. Edsel Ford entered the world. Promoted to chief engineer. Power, access, opportunity. He worked through the night, every single night. Thomas Edison himself told Ford, "You're onto something." That endorsement gave him the courage to leap. He built the quadricycle in his tiny backyard shed. June 4th, 1896. The first Ford vehicle moved. No reverse gear, no cooling system, but it worked. He had proven the impossible. Now came the hard part. The real journey had only just begun. In 1899, he founded his first automobile company, the Detroit Automobile Company. It failed fast. 20 cars. 2 years. Investors pulled out. He didn't quit. He pivoted. He chose the racetrack. Racing was marketing. Wins meant credibility and capital. His racing victories attracted investors, 11 of them. Failure had become fuel. Ford was ready to rebuild. June 16th, 1903, Ford Motor Company was born. Capitalized at $100,000. History begins. He had one mission, a car for every American. Henry Ford didn't want to build cars for the rich. He wanted a car for the great multitude. The first Ford Motor Company models A through S, were expensive, incremental improvements. But Ford was already obsessing over something far more radical, a truly affordable, mass-market vehicle. Then came vanadium steel, 3 times stronger and far lighter than anything available at the time. This material breakthrough made a lighter, stronger, cheaper car physically possible for the first time. On October 1st, 1908, the Model T was released, and the world changed forever. Within the first few days, Ford received 15,000 orders, more than any factory could handle. The Model T was priced at $850, affordable for middle-income Americans, but still not cheap enough for Ford. He was already plotting how to drive that price down further, far below anything his rivals could imagine. Ford's genius was not invention, it was optimization. Every detail of production was constantly examined. He timed every step, every movement, hunting seconds to eliminate and costs to destroy. In 1910, Ford opened the brand-new Highland Park plant in Michigan, a purpose-built production facility. Highland Park was designed from the ground up for speed, efficiency, and massive volume production. Then Ford visited a Chicago meatpacking plant, and what he saw would transform manufacturing forever. The slaughterhouse used a moving overhead line to bring work to the workers, not the other way around. Ford immediately recognized the principle. Apply this to cars, and production speed would multiply dramatically. In 1913, the world's first automotive moving assembly line became fully operational at Highland Park. Before the assembly line, Building one car chassis took 12 hours and 28 minutes. After the assembly line, 93 minutes. A revolution in production had just been unleashed. Cars flowed off the line like water one every 3 minutes by the peak of production. Each worker performed one task, one bolt, one weld, one operation, repeated thousands of times. Specialization replaced generalization, and productivity exploded beyond any previous industrial benchmark. But there was a dark side. Workers hated the repetitive, soul-crushing monotony of the line. Worker turnover reached 300% annually. Ford was hiring 3 men to keep one on the job. The high turnover cost more in training and recruiting than it saved through assembly line efficiency. On January 5, 1914, Henry Ford announced the $5 workday, more than double the going rate. Wall Street called it economic madness. Ford knew it was the most brilliant business decision he'd ever make. He also cut the workday from 9 hours to 8 workers, had never seen anything like it. 10,000 men showed up at the Highland Park gate the next morning seeking jobs. A riot nearly broke out. Ford had turned his workers into customers, men who could now afford the very cars they built. The logic was elegant. Pay workers enough to buy what they make, and demand fuels itself. By 1914, Ford was producing more automobiles than every other manufacturer in the United States combined. The Model T price fell from $850 in 1908 to just $360 by 1916, a dramatic drop driven by efficiency. The cheaper the car became, the more people bought, the more they bought, the cheaper Ford could make it. Ford had created a self-reinforcing economic engine, and no competitor could break its momentum. By 1916, half of all automobiles on planet Earth were Ford Model T vehicles. Ford's global dominance wasn't accidental, it was the result of systematic, obsessive optimization of every process. To gain even greater control over costs, Ford began building his own supply chain from raw materials upward. He acquired iron ore mines, coal fields, timber forests, glass plants, and rubber plantations. He even owned a railroad and a fleet of ships controlling every link from ore to the open road. This was vertical integration at a scale no businessman before him had ever attempted or achieved. The River Rouge complex in Michigan became the most integrated industrial facility in human history. Raw iron ore entered River Rouge on one side. Finished automobiles drove out the other within 28 hours. The complex employed 100,000 workers and covered more than 2,000 acres of land. Ford was not just a car company, it had become a sovereign industrial empire within a nation. In 1919, Ford made a bold and controversial move. He bought out every single outside stockholder. 100% ownership. No board to answer to, no shareholders to appease. Absolute control. This absolute control freed Ford from shareholder pressure, but it also removed all checks on his decisions. The Model T became the greatest commercial product in history. 15 million units sold over 19 years. Ford became one of the wealthiest Americans of all time, rivaling Rockefeller and Carnegie in pure financial power. But by the early 1920s, the market was evolving and Ford stubbornly refused to evolve with it. General Motors under Alfred Sloan began offering different models, colors, and features, everything Ford refused. Ford famously quipped that customers could have any color as long as it was black. The quip was funny, but the strategy behind it was becoming a serious competitive liability by the mid-1920s. Chevrolet sales surged as American consumers demanded style, comfort, and choice, things Ford didn't offer. In 1927, Ford was finally forced to halt Model T production after 19 years on the market. He closed the factories for 6 months, retooled every line, and launched the brand new Model A. The new Model A was a sleeker, more modern vehicle that recaptured public attention across America. In 1932, Ford introduced the mass-produced V8 engine, another engineering breakthrough that shocked the industry. The V8 became iconic. Even notorious outlaw Clyde Barrow wrote Ford a letter praising the engine's power. Despite the innovations, the Great Depression hit Ford's empire hard. Sales plummeted across all divisions. By 1936, Ford Motor Company had fallen to third place in the U.S. market behind GM and Chrysler. Ford's stubbornness, once his greatest strength, had become the company's most dangerous weakness. Labor tensions also mounted. Ford hired private security forces and resisted union organizing aggressively. The infamous 1937 Battle of the Overpass, where union organizers were beaten, shocked the national press. Public opinion turned. Ford was no longer just the hero of the working man. His image had fractured. In 1941, under pressure from the government and workforce, Ford finally signed the first union agreement. When World War II began, Ford's factories pivoted overnight to produce aircraft engines, jeeps, and tanks. The Willow Run plant produced one B-24 Liberator bomber every 63 minutes at peak wartime output. Henry Ford had put America on wheels, and now he helped put America on wings during the war. In 1943, personal tragedy struck. His beloved son, Edsel, died of stomach cancer at just 49 years old. Edsel had been Ford's heir and modernizing force. His death left the company without its planned succession. An 80-year-old Henry Ford returned from retirement to lead the wartime company through its final phase. In 1945, Henry Ford II, his grandson, took control, saving the company from the brink of financial ruin. The elder Ford spent his final years at Fair Lane, his Dearborn estate, watching the world he had built. On April 7, 1947, Henry Ford died of a cerebral hemorrhage at his estate. He was 83 years old. The world mourned. Henry Ford had not just built a company, he had reshaped American civilization itself. Ford Motor Company today employs nearly 200,000 people across more than 50 countries worldwide. Its market capitalization stands at approximately $70 billion more than a century after its founding. From a Michigan farm boy to a global industrial titan, the story of Henry Ford defies every conventional limit. Henry Ford's legacy begins with a single truth. He refused to accept that ordinary people deserved less than extraordinary things. He democratized mobility. Before Ford, only the wealthy owned automobiles. He changed that equation forever. The assembly line he perfected became the template for modern manufacturing across every industry on Earth. Every factory that uses an assembly line today, from electronics to food to aerospace, owes a debt to Ford. The $5 workday was more than a wage policy, it was the philosophical foundation of the American middle class. By proving workers could be customers, Ford revealed that prosperity shared was prosperity multiplied across society. His first failures, the Detroit Automobile Company, the race circuits, the investor losses, never broke his spirit. He famously said, "Failure is simply the opportunity to begin again, this time more intelligently." That philosophy of intelligent failure learning, adapting, restarting, is now taught in every business school worldwide. Ford's vertical integration strategy remains the most studied and emulated model in supply chain history even today. Amazon, Apple, and Tesla have all borrowed from Ford's core principle: control your supply chain, control your destiny. The lesson of Highland Park was not speed alone, it was the power of designing systems rather than just products. Ford understood that building one great product is impressive. Building a machine that builds great products is transformational. His obsession with reducing price, not increasing profit margin, was a radical inversion of standard business logic. He believed that volume and market dominance were worth far more than fat margins on small quantities. That pricing philosophy helped create American consumer culture, the idea that great goods should be within reach of all. Henry Ford fundamentally changed the relationship between employer and employee, and the reverberations are still felt. His biography is not a story of perfection. Ford had real flaws, real contradictions, and real blind spots. His stubbornness cost the company its market leadership. His anti-union stance damaged lives and his own reputation. Yet, despite these contradictions, no honest historian denies Ford's transformative impact on human civilization. The roads we drive on, the factories that supply our world, the wages we earn all bear the fingerprint of Henry Ford. He started with nothing but curiosity and the will to work through every obstacle placed before him. He failed publicly, rebuilt quietly, and then dominated so completely that the world could not ignore him. His discipline was not talent, it was repetition, refinement, and an unrelenting drive to make things better. If Henry Ford had stayed on his father's farm, the 20th century would have looked radically different. One 16-year-old's walk to Detroit set in motion a chain of events that reshaped the entire modern world. Every entrepreneur who has ever built something from nothing carries a small piece of Henry Ford's blueprint. The blueprint is simple. Find a real problem, engineer a real solution, price it for everyone, and never stop improving. Ford never built luxury. He built necessity, made it beautiful, and delivered it at a price that changed lives. That is the core of his genius, not brilliance in isolation, but brilliance deployed at massive, democratic scale. Today, Ford Motor Company builds electric vehicles, autonomous systems, and next-generation mobility solutions. The founder would recognize the obsession with innovation, even if the technology would have astonished him completely. The farm boy from Dearborn proved that the distance between poverty and power is bridged by obsession and execution. He didn't wait for permission. He didn't wait for investors to believe first. He built, and the